I mean, you have to build a model which works for New Zealand, and so it's similar to other parts, but it's not exactly the same, because if you look at New Zealand, you really need, it's sort of a long skinny country, and so you need to have people close to the action, which means having 4 regions down the country, I think, is the best way. And what we're doing here is we're really putting our general management team closer to the people in smaller patches so that the decisions can happen faster. And I mean, this whole thing, what we want to do over the next couple of years is about simplification. So taking out bureaucracy where we can, getting out decisions quicker, taking out things that slow anything down, and this is just a step in that process.
Of course, I just wonder, with the greater competition we're certainly seeing in that retail deposit market, and I know that a number of the banks now are looking themselves much harder at commercial, business and agriculture. Given that you've already been that biggest lender in the agricultural market, is this change needed to make sure you ensure that #1 status and the fact that you've actually probably had more to lose than others?
Well, I mean, that's a good way to look at it. I mean, certainly I'm here to grow the business, and you know, we think we've actually got a fairly unique proposition with our ability to connect customers outside of New Zealand with, you know, many countries in Asia and Australia and the Pacific. So we like that, and we need to leverage it. And certainly one way of leveraging it is making sure that your managers don't have patches that are so large that they become ineffective. And so, you know, we see a real opportunity going forward, particularly in the agri sector. If you sort of look at if you look at what's going on in Asia and India, I think in India, you know, there's 20 million people a year that are moving from 1 to 2 meals a day, and they want more protein. And then you look at the general trend, you know, there's less arable land, there's more population coming on, so New Zealand's just in the prime position to really benefit from that over the next probably 20, 30 years. So we are, I think New Zealand will benefit from it, and we obviously want to get our fair share of it, and hopefully we can get a bit more than that. So this is really about setting us up so that we can really be a key player in that whole agri sector, and how it grows and sort of goes outside New Zealand. That's the sort of stuff that John Key's talking about in some of the speeches he said about how New Zealand has to actually grow.
Can you give us an example of how a current customer might be able to connect up with the bank for that intra-regional strategy? Because in the past, most will have simply had a loan on against their land, and that's it. But yeah, what would be different in an intra-regional strategy? Okay,
so the first thing is that we've got one thing about the rural business as it was that it went from the very smallest to the very biggest. And so you tend to sort of, the middle gets looked after not too bad, but not at the edges. And so some of our large customers, probably we could have connected them up better with equity. So we've got, in our institutional business and the top end of Graham's business, we come into contact with a lot of people who are looking to do business and talk to us about, you know, we've got equity, we'd like to buy into these sorts of businesses. And they weren't sort of really talking to the customers in the rural segment. They weren't really getting that exposure, so putting them in that one team, they'll get that. Probably another example is that a lot of the commercial customers may not just have a farm in New Zealand, some of them have farms in Australia, and so in commercial and institutional, they're used to moving money across the Tasman with our Transactive product. Yet, you know, in rural they may not have had that, so they'll be able to move their money around quicker. So there's things like that where we think we can sort of bring their expanding business more to life. I mean, if you're somebody who simply works in, you know, behind the farm gate and doesn't want to go to Asia, that's fine as well, because we'll look after them as well. But they don't need to have the same complexity of proposition.
Is this part of the response to the trend away from just family farms to more corporate farms?
Well, I think there is a trend where the numbers are getting bigger, and when the numbers get bigger and the farms get bigger, the stakes become larger, and you have to corporatise and you have to become more professional in the way you manage a farm. So over the last few years, farmers are getting more used to producing their forward-looking cash flows and doing more around their financial numbers. And so that is just a trend which is becoming more sophisticated, and that again supports what we're doing here, which is really taking that segment approach, and so getting the sophistication around the size of the customer much better than trying to sort of have a broad range.